Within, I don't think they have a strict parking requirements for the stands in Cosmos City. And also ourselves, because Cosmos City's guideline has been a bit odd, we haven't necessarily done deals there, but there is demand there.
But what do you mean it's odd?
Because that Res 1 land use right isn't the same as other COJ residential Res 1 rights. You have to actually pay attention to what does your stand say. Because if you just go by assumption, you would think they're all the same, but they're not. City of Johannesburg, Res 1, standard freestanding house, standard homes. Typically, you're allowed to build 6 units with Courier standard residential homes are zoned as residential 2, which only allows for one additional dwelling. And even their Res 3 is different to City of Johannesburg's Res 3. There's a whole bunch of technicalities behind it. But the point being, I think for the viewers, is that, and getting your zoning information is actually, it's kind of easy. That information's out on
There's
particularly
a town planning scheme. Where do they get it?
GIS
you
maps.
and I can say town planning scheme, GIS, but where does somebody who just maybe acquired a property or inherited
Where do they
a property,
start?
Where do they start? Where do they get
I think
there?
your first starting point, your municipal statement. Just to get your data correct on what earth is your land and what township, and not township as in Ikasi, but in what area of residential that's been declared as a township. So even suburbs in terms of town planning are townships. So your municipal statement is the first document you must look at for reference. Earth number, where is it located, street address, because you get street changes. You get houses that use the earth number as the house number, but it's not the house number, but it's the, particularly in township communities, guys are using their earth numbers instead of street number, which is fine.
2622 instead of saying 1 Foul Street.
So then, once you have that, online, most of the municipalities have a system called GIS, where it's a shared, the city actually used that same platform. They just have more rights, more access rights, and they can see more, but it's the same system that the city use to quickly refer to your stand, your current zoning, and what's permissible on that. There's also municipal bylaws that get issued out for each municipality or metropolitan that in black and white will have classifications and what is permissible, what you are allowed to do. So if you could find that you've got a piece of land, you have the vision to develop property on it, but that piece of residential property, but the piece of land is actually zoned as industrial, but you never knew this. You bought the land cash for R1 million to pursue this residential building you want to put there. The property is zoned as institutional, which is meaning it's making way for either a church, a communal facility,
a community hall. So your building plans are getting declined. Now you have to go through rezoning. Because you want to do residential, but it's institutional.
So for that developer who unfortunately is in that predicament,
but guys build anyway.
They either explore option A, which is to build anyway, or option B, that it's the unfortunate process of going through the rezoning, which does take time and does take money. Rezoning isn't a free thing. You have to pay a town planner who's going to guide you along this journey. There's a few things that the town planner has to go through in terms of the process to get your stand rezoned. I think the one part...
What's the quickest you've had in terms of rezoning? When let's say an entrepreneur is doing things right.
Right.
But they came to you and said...
It took time, Joe.
Took time. The quickest you've had took time.
Has maybe, yeah. The quickest so far, my experience has maybe been about 10 months.
10 months, okay.
10 months. And he still had to pay bulk contributions on top, which came at a...
And people don't know that.
At a hefty
price. It does
price.
not become now, your rates, do they not change, become more expensive?
Well, that also depends on what the current zoning is as well. But there is, if your property is zoned as business allows for residential properties. But
like
business,
units.
Yeah. But business has a different rates tariff and a different electricity tariff, more expensive than residential. So you might have nice structure, zoned, plans approved, everything, but now you've got an operating expense, which is your municipal account. That's higher than it should be. Actually, I was looking at a deal on the tough side where the client was actually trying to get the municipality to readjust the rates and taxes being billed to the property. Because when the property was being sold by the seller, when we put a deal together, we asked for the municipal accounts just to see what's happening. And so when we do our feasibility, we want to see what the expenses are. So the seller was getting charged on residential rates. Sure. When our client now buys the building and the transfers happened, for whatever reason, the city just went back to commercial and went back to business.
And he was buying it based on even seeing the rate statement.
So a few months in, is making like 30,000 Rand less than we had anticipated. And we picked it up that, your municipal account is almost double than what the seller's account was.
So meaning if the seller was paying, let's say 5, then he's paying what, 3-4 times that amount?
Well, almost double.
Almost double.
So yeah, it was around the 10, 15 for that example. It was in many more thousands. I think we were anticipating around 20,000 Rands, 22. And he was floating at 38, 40 grand a month. And that was just because of the rates.
That's double the cost.
The property was being billed as commercial as opposed to residential, which he's now pursuing. So he still has to pay, but at least he can maybe one day receive a credit where you're saying, look, the previous seller, when I bought this building, was being charged on residential rates because the building is predominantly residential. It's one of those ones in Randburg where on the ground floor, it's commercial.
Mixed development.
But the rest of the ground floor and the first floor are commercial.